Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? I'm in a limbo spot with my reading. The George Washington bio, I've made progress on it, but there's not a whole lot to report substance wise about the last couple of chapters that I've read. Moonshine Bigfoot 3 came out. I'm going to wait until Moonshine Bigfoot 4. That'll finish the mini series and I'll just cover the whole thing and I'll do a video with the issues. And then I started a new murder mystery series yesterday that I thought was going to be good, but there were major content issues with it early on, and I was like, I know I'm not going to like this. So punted on that. I was like, well, what am I going to talk to the gang about on the drive to work tonight? Then I remembered a series that I started, I think, in 2023, and I haven't carried on with it a whole lot. I really liked the first book. The second book was kind of a slowdown, and I've just dragged my feet on getting to the rest of them. But there's about a dozen of them out so far, and the author, Declan Finn, he's my editor over at Upstream. He's writing a crossover series between this one and another series he's got going. He's a really productive writer. He's got a lot of stuff going at once. So I was like, well, I gave a hard 5 stars to the first book. Why don't I talk about that here? And it is called Hellspawn. It is the first in the St. Tommy NYPD series. Now, close to 25 years ago, Jim Butcher burst onto the scene with his Dresden Files series, and he quickly became the gold standard in urban fantasy, especially like urban fantasy mystery and procedurals. Harry Dresden is a private detective in Chicago. He's also a wizard. He works with the cops, but the key thing is that what he does is under the radar. People don't practice magic openly, and there are very few normies that believe in magic. And there are even a couple of instances throughout the series where he sits down and explains that magic is just one of those things that people won't see unless they want to. And he gives some really well-written kind of like speeches and passages explaining why that's true. The flip side of that, with the St. Tommy series, is that it's not so much magic as it is spirituality. St. Tommy Nolan, is a devout Roman Catholic, and he's also a cop in New York, as the title would suggest. And his thing is he's imbued with sainthood, with Catholic sainthood. He gets this divine protection, and he's called on to fight demonic powers in New York. And so there are blessings and not necessarily drawbacks, but there are parameters that come with that. And one of them is that he's obviously going to be doing good and righteous and saintly things out in the open, but people aren't necessarily going to accept those things for what they are. And while he's going to fight demonic powers as a detective, those same demonic powers are going to work against him as far as public perception goes. I'm intentionally being vague because there's a villain that he faces off in the first book that when you get to probably about the halfway point to the 2/3 point, you're like, oh crap, this is a real world thing. And he offers a very convincing spiritual explanation for it. It's like, you'd be hard pressed to say that this isn't actually what's going on here. And Saint Tommy, being a devout Catholic saint, righteous warrior for God, has to approach this problem in a certain way. One of his parameters is that he can't be dishonest, but when you're dealing with IA investigations, you've got to be tactical in how you explain things so that they don't kick you off the force for being a nutter. You can't just come out and say, well, God made me a saint, so I've got to do X, Y, Z. Well, how did you survive getting shot? Well, blah, blah, blah. It's Catholic Dresden, but it's not him using wizard magic and stuff. It's him operating under the rules that a saint would in the 21st century. He's not doing this alone. There are a couple of other members of the force, including some superiors, who they do know what's going on and they're on board with it. They help him a little bit. They provide him some cover and stuff. They help him kind of maneuver through the system. But I'm curious to see how these complications play out over the remainder of the series. Like I said, I really loved the first book. The second one, I got to the end of it and it was like, okay, it felt like a little bit too much of an echo of the first one, and I wonder if the method going forward isn't just going to be like, oh, and then Tommy had to go up against the bad guys and he said Hail Marys the whole time while he also fought them, and everything was fine. Like, it's not so much whether he's in danger. He's got a wife and a son, and so there can be collateral, there can be leverage against him, and that really came into play in the second book. I want to see the challenge evolve a little bit. But going back to the Dresden comparison, Stormfront knocked everybody's socks off. That was the first book. Full Moon was definitely a bit of a sophomore slump. Not to say that I can't remember. Is Infernal Affairs the second St. Tommy book? Wasn't so much of a slump, but it didn't blow my hair back the way that the first one did. Graham, you bald! Shut up. But there were about a dozen of these, and he's what am I saying here? Like, he's teased out like elements that play out in later books. There's Vatican ninjas and stuff, and there's some dark web stuff going on in another book. These books are short enough, like the audiobooks are about 5 or 6 hours long, but they don't overstay their welcome. I've just been dragging my feet in picking them up the way as I've been using Audible credits on other stuff. And I think that's probably got to do with why. Like, these aren't available through the library. I've got to use Audible credits on them, and I've got a whole bunch of Audible books on my wish list, so I'm just cycling things in and out. But this was a really good series, and it was especially good that it was accessible to even non-Catholic readers like me. Like, I'm Christian, but I'm not of the Catholic persuasion, but it's fine. Like, if you understand that this is the system within this within which this main character works, then you'll be all set. Like, my grandpa was Catholic. My mom's dad, he was mom's stepdad, so like, he's full-blooded Italian. Like, I've got zero Italian blood, but grandpa was my grandpa. Like, I've got obviously familiarity with doctrine and practices to an extent. I served a mission in a Catholic country. I almost said Catholic-speaking country. So like, I'm familiar with the basics of it, and that makes it accessible to to me on the outside. It's not one of those books that's like trying to proselytize to the reader. It's like a thinly veiled, like, everybody should become Catholic. Like, it's told from Tommy's perspective, and obviously that's what he's going to believe in, and it offers at the same time like a perspective on what form evil takes in the 21st century. Not in a beat you over the head kind of way, but it's like, well, that's definitely a take. So check out Hellspawn. That's the first one in the series. Content-wise, I do believe that in the first two books, like, he's dropped like one F-bomb in each, and I think it's just to kind of like accurately portray, like, hey, these are cops fighting evil in New York. You're gonna run up against some stuff. It's not gonna be like Princess Rainbow Sparkles all the time. So you be advised on that, but it also isn't something that he, it's not like it's a chord that he strikes way too much. So check out the link in the description. That'll be my affiliate link, and then I'll also link to the review that I wrote over at Upstream a couple of years ago for that first one, and then probably have to reread the second and get on with the series. But anyway, thanks for watching. Drive safe. See you out there.